It's a familiar story. You're really excited to start your YouTube channel. You've got your eye on the prize. You're learning everything you can. You're working on your videos. You're posting. And then 6 months in, it's no fun anymore. A lot of people quit YouTube after 6 months. And it's easy to think that there's something about YouTube or about content creation that is responsible for this. But actually, the real reason is much more interesting. And it teaches us something that goes well beyond content creation, something that you, once you learn it, will think about in the rest of your life. So buckle up. It's going to be a nerdy episode. Okay, so they found that when it comes to YouTube, a lot of people quit by that 6-month mark. Now, why is that? Why is everybody quitting YouTube at 6 months? What is up with content creation that makes people tolerate it for about that long and then be like, nah bro, I'm a head on out? Well, it turns out it has very little to do with YouTube itself or even content creation, and more about how human beings adapt to change. And the culprit here is something called the hedonic treadmill. The treadmill, like at the gym? Yeah, for real. So what is the hedonic treadmill? The first word, hedonic, comes from the word hedonism, which is the pursuit of pleasure and happiness, that sort of thing. And the treadmill is the appliance at the gym, the equipment that you walk on. The hedonic treadmill is a psychological principle that states that everybody kind of has this happiness set point. They have a temperament. They're either a happy or unhappy person at baseline, and they kind of stay there. Are you an Eeyore or are you a Tigger? That sort of thing. I am a Tigger married to an Eeyore, and I think there are a lot of people out there in that situation, but I digress. Anyway, the hedonic treadmill states that for all major life changes, whether they're positive or negative, you have a big boost for positive changes to your happiness, or a big drain for negative changes in the other direction. But that effect only lasts about 6 months. And then after that 6-month period, you regress back to the mean, to your average level of happiness, to your happiness set point. The hedonic treadmill is sometimes also known as the honeymoon period. And once you learn about it and you look around, you will see it in every single major life change. You will see it when people get into new relationships, when they get new jobs that they like or that they're very stressed about. You will see it with them going back to school. You will see it with major health issues that it'll be very difficult for the first 6 months until they adapt. The hedonic treadmill has to do with adaptation and our perception of things as normal, whether it's good normal or bad normal. Either the new shiny wears off and the honeymoon is over and it's like back to blah, or if something is very stressful, these stresses become normalized too. And so when it comes to content creation, if you are doing it because you are just really jazzed and it's making you happy, just the novelty of it, you are going to be able to sustain that excitement for approximately 6 months. And then at that point, the excitement is going to taper off. And you will need something like habit and other things to keep you motivated. There's actually a really great quote that is very true that I'd like to share with you by Octavia Butler. First, forget inspiration. Habit is more dependable. Habit will sustain you whether you're inspired or not. Habit will help you finish and polish your stories. Inspiration won't. Habit is persistence in practice. And I think there's a particular issue too with growth here when it comes to YouTubers. So anybody who has at least 10 videos out is probably familiar with the 1 of 10 to 10 of 10 system. But if you're new to it, basically YouTube has an at-a-glance ranking for your newest video. What it does is it takes your latest 10 videos and it compares the new release against the entire field of your last 10 videos. And it does it relative to the time from release. So it's looking at how videos did within the first hour or 3 hours, first day, etc. So when you have a video that's 1 of 10, that means that your current video, the current episode on your channel, is doing better than any of the last 10 videos on your channel. And this is a cause for celebration. Actually, on the desktop version, YouTube makes confetti go wild all around you in the UI next to 1 of 10 if you have a 1 of 10. And when your channel is small and you're kind of doing your first growth, it can get really easy to get addicted to that 1 of 10, to start having all or nothing thinking. If you have something that's 5 of 10, 8 of 10, even 10 of 10, it can be like, oh my gosh, I'm a failure, I'm not gonna make it. You're not gonna have that enthusiasm that week. if you're constantly thinking about that. I've seen people freak out because they're at 2 of 10 or 3 of 10, which honestly, you've got a good video. It's comparing you to you. You're growing. You know, that's good. But at times like that, the excitement can wane if you have a week where your current episode's just doing so-so, or maybe it's not doing great. Especially as your channel grows and you have more videos, you can look back and see that it's doing well in the context of the channel, especially if you're on a string of hits. If you have a bunch of hits, then the bar for 1 of 10, 2 of 10 goes higher. So that's a case where habit becomes more important. So there's this advice, and I've talked about this in other episodes, but it bears repeating, that there's this advice that you shouldn't even think about how your YouTube channel is doing, how fast it's growing or not growing until you've put out 50 videos, 50 videos, because you won't have enough data, you won't have enough experience, you won't have the habit sustained to really be solid, to be questioning yourself in those terms. It'll be profoundly demotivated. You need that momentum, you need that habit. And interestingly, if you think about it, if you're posting once a week, that puts you at about a year. Think about it this way. That first 6 months is where a lot of people have quit because that excitement wears off. If you make a commitment to push past the excitement and do another 6-month term, you'll be well out of the honeymoon period. You'll have worked for a full 6 months without that hedonic treadmill artificial energy. And you will be a real force if you can push past that. This is sounding a little doom and gloom, right? You're gonna really like YouTube for the first 6 months and be very, very excited, and then it's gonna be gone, the excitement, and then you're gonna wanna quit, right? Well, not so fast. Let me explain. There is a flip side to the hedonic treadmill that is actually good news. So as I was saying at the beginning, the hedonic treadmill doesn't just apply to positive changes. It also applies to negative changes. If you were anything like me, when I started, I hated video editing. I hated the sound of my own voice. I've done videos on getting over the sound of my own voice and some of the tricks I've used, but it was horrible. It was agony at first. I did not like editing at all. I was so stressed out when I started on YouTube. I got over it. When did I get over it? About 6 months in. It's not a coincidence. Video editing got so much easier for me about 6 months in. You know, once upon a time, I actually hated it and I felt nauseated every time I sat down. I was sick to my stomach. But then about 6 months in, I sat down one day and I noticed that I was excited to video edit. I was excited to do videos. And I never thought that was going to happen. Even knowing about the hedonic treadmill, I would have been like, no, this is too painful. It's never going to get better. I'm just going to suffer. I just need to drag myself through it. I really felt that way. It really did not feel like it was going to get any better, and it totally did about 6 months in. So there's hope. If you're finding the adjustment difficult, if you're finding that it's hard to make the time for the content creation and to deal with the anxiety of hearing your own voice, the frustration of learning video editing software, especially if you're teaching yourself like I was, there is hope. And I do think that's why people are like, give it a year of consistent, steady, weekly posting before you draw any conclusions. Because not only does it have to do with your channel growth, it also has to do with your personal growth and the way that you adapt to things, giving yourself time to get through those various honeymoon phases or nightmare phases, as it was for me with video editing. So that's why most YouTubers quit after 6 months. So I'm a psychological researcher by background. I used to run a training department at a psychological firm. I know a lot about stats, statistical analyses, and research. So nerd alert, but 6 months is an average, right? And it is a notable average timeline for a lot of people. Now, there are going to be people who fall outside that are outliers on either side. And what they have found in the research is that there are appreciable chunks in adaptation, in regressing back to the happiness set point, not just at 6 months, but also at 1 year and 2 years. So there will be your mileage may vary here, but 6 months is typically a very reliable guideline for at least a large change. Anyway, it was great talking to you as always. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.